So this is Francine Houston, and this is the Artist in You. And today we have our guest, Natasha Sunday Clark. Will you please like to introduce yourself to the audience?
Hi, good morning, Francine, and thank you so much for having me today. I am Natasha Sunday Clark. Um, I am a military Army officer, active duty. I've been in the Army for 22 years. I will be retiring 28 February 2025, so really excited. I'm a wife, a mom of five, grandmother of four. Um, I am an author, a published author. I do a lot for the community and the nonprofit organizations, and I do a lot in the church, and I'm just happy to be here.
Okay, and what? How many books have you written?
So far, I've been a part of three anthologies, Joy 365 being one. And then I'm in the process where I just finished my um, piece for a book that'll be coming out in about 2 weeks called Married to My Purpose, where we'll also do a women's conference. And so that'll be the fourth one. I'll work on my own, where I'll talk a little about the life of a military person and dealing with suicide and sexual assault in the coming year. So
Okay. Okay. Do you? What's the title of that book?
the one for the one that I'm going to be doing,
Yeah.
I haven't given it a name yet.
Oh.
I have a
Okay.
list. I have a list. I think I'm going to go with either A Peek Behind the Curtain
Mhm.
or The Little Black Book.
Oh.
So, yes.
Okay.
So I've really been, I'm going to, I generally write first and
Mhm.
then as writing and then flowing, the title just kind of comes out. So we'll see what God leads me.
Okay. So what made you join Joy 365 Devotional?
So Dr. Blackwell is also a retired veteran as well. And herself, along with a couple of other people that I knew that were veterans in the military, they
Mhm.
also um, reached out and they said, "Hey, we're doing this anthology, and it's going to be a devotional." And I love to get up. I love to get up and read my different devotionals. I love to, get on the internet and look at different like positive, uplifting things. And so I was like, why not? Um, the title was fitting, Joy 365, because generally for me, when I'm going into my word, I'm looking for it to help bring comfort and peace into my life. And so I found this publication to be um, right on point with how I live my daily life.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Um, so what was your chapter about?
So my chapter was about Proverbs. So it came from the verse Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with
Mhm.
all thy heart. Lean not to thy own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him and he will direct thy path. And I focused on the mustard seed faith. Um, Growing up as a little person, younger person,
Mhm.
I would be in church and I would hear the pastor and they'd be like, you gotta have the mustard seed faith. You gotta have the mustard seed faith. And I would hear it, you could read about it, but I didn't really know what a mustard seed was until I became an adult. Like I had never really seen a mustard seed. And I don't know what it was. I was walking down the aisle of the store one day, sitting in a spice aisle, and I'm like, that's a mustard seed. And, so I kind of picked them up and I bought some. And I remember keeping them on my desk at work. And I wrote the word faith on there. And I began to apply that to my life that if someone has faith this small, the smallest as much as seed, you're telling me that you can overcome things. You can, the analogy, you can move mountains. And so trusting in the Lord, trusting him with everything and not just some things. And sometimes that's hard, especially for me personally, having served in the U.S. Army, being deployed 5 times, six, being living overseas for about 9 years, combat, and then trusting that you're going to be able to come back to see your family, trusting that the person that's sitting to the left or right of you is going to be there. And so, yeah, I live by that. I truly live by that verse. I do my best to live by that verse because I will say I'm not perfect. So I do my best to live by that verse.
Yeah. How small is a mustard seed? It's like super duper small.
It is super. So if you take because I'm sitting here with a pen, if you look at the ballpoint of a pen, it's
Mhm.
like it's really, really
That's how small it is.
a mustard. When I tell you again, I was my a whole adult life. And I saw, and I'm like, so what I would do sometimes, there would be people come to my office because in the army, um, you're not allowed to, put your religion out on people because you got to understand people have different backgrounds and grew up differently in life. But people, it would be a conversation starter always. And so I would always take one out the little container and I would place one in someone's hand and I would say, just trust that the process is going to work. Just have this much trust, this much faith it's going to work. And so and mustard seed is very small. It's very small.
Okay, well, you've been in the military, a mom, and all of these things. How do you find time to write?
It wasn't until 2021. I had it was January 2021. There was a moment in my life when I wanted to take my life because it was a lot. And during that time frame, I was asked and selected to be a speechwriter. That's a job in the Army. Did not know that, not something I'd ever done. I did not go to school for that. But what I found is as I was speech writing and throughout that process of reassessing how important life is, I started writing. So I wasn't just writing for my boss, who was in charge of a lot of things. He was a 4-star general. I started writing personal pieces. This was also during the time frame when the Black Lives Matter movement had like gone on the way because 2020, 2021, and I just started writing my own things. And I was asked that summer of 21 if I would be a part of a book called Pivot, and where 20 women would share their story, how the pandemic pushed the women to their passion. And so I was just going to talk about, being in the military and just, how you overcome things as a woman of color, as a wife or mom. But I actually shared my testimony, my story, and how I pushed through that during the pandemic. And I didn't know that I had a story in me, honestly. And from there, I was just like, I want to write. So I just started writing.
So since then, you've just been writing books.
I've been writing. I have just been writing. I write a lot. If I'm not writing a book, I will have people that will, you have Chat GPT now. I'm probably like the Chat GPT for many of my friends. I will write their speeches for them. I will write letters for them. I just write. It's soothing.
So when is the best time of the day that you find you can write?
Good question. I would have to say for me, it's night.
Night?
It's at night. In the mornings, my mind is already going like, what I got to do, but at night, everyone's like, I don't have to do anything for anybody else at the moment. That's my space, and I can just go and because throughout the day I'm thinking about things, but at night I can just sit and be still. I know a lot of people say the morning time, they wake up in the morning. That is not me. It's not me. It's not me.
How do you know what to write?
I don't. Sometimes I do. You're given a topic. Hey, can you help me write this? This last piece that I'm doing for Married to My Purpose, we went on vacation. Just my husband and I took a vacation, and we try to do that yearly. And we went to Jamaica, and blessings to those that are going through that hurricane right now. We had just gotten back, and in my time of sitting on the beach, and in my time of sitting in a room on a balcony, I had all these stories in me. And what I do is I've taken advantage of a lot of technology now that we have, and I'll voice record stuff, and then I'll go back and I'll listen. And I sat there and I just started, just as soon as I got back, I just started writing whatever was in my head. So, when you grow up in school, they tell you how to frame a paper. You have the introduction, the body, the conclusion. My stuff will be all over the place. It's like a map. Actually, as I'm working on one, it's literally like a map, just stuff, and I feel things in with it as I go. And that's what I did. And I asked the publisher, I said, how many words? And she was like 250. And I was like, oh, I'm at 2,253. So let me try and scale it. And she was like, no, submit. I was like, no. So I was able to scale it down to a little over 500 words.
Wow. I mean, was this for the anthology?
It was for the anthology. But the good thing about it is that I'm going to be one of the speakers for the Women's Conference. So I'll be able to use those 2,000 plus words for my motivational piece during a conference.
Yeah, with all of those words, you could write your own book. Yeah, you got it.
Writing is, and it depends on what you're writing. I don't have like like when you read, some people say, I like to read this particular genre, or I like to read some of everything. And I'm reading at any given time 3 books at any given time, because I may be in the mood for some fiction. I may be in the mood for some, I like old school romance. So it just really depends. And I think with me, with writing, especially my own book, I need to be in a space where I'm ready to share my life with the world. Sharing that one piece of a testimony it was bold. It was bold because I'm still in the Army. And we are still talking about suicide awareness and prevention. We are still talking about many of our service members that have committed suicide. And so that was like the first step. So I have to make sure that I'm ready. And I believe I'll be ready next year. We'll see.
Okay. How long does it take you to write a book?
It depends. So with Joy 365, that particular piece, as simple as it was, it took me about 2 weeks. And I mean, it was short. It was a short piece, but it was personal because when I wrote for my bosses, and I'm a speechwriter again in my current job. When I write, I want people to remember you when you come off the stage. And so I'm big on watching the news, and we have the Speaker of the House, they come on, they're talking. I want people to remember what's being said. I want them to be able to take something from it. So it's not just I just go write and that be that. It has to be memorable. So there's no time frame.
Okay. What was the most difficult part of writing a book?
Words.
Words.
The word count.
Oh yeah.
It seems like it's simple. You tell somebody, no more than 2 pages, but 2 pages, if they're not on a certain font or, I think the word count, because you're trying to fit it into this frame, but you also have to remember that, how do I get the most in this? Anthologies are hard. They are very hard. I think they are hard, but it's a good challenge for those that like to write. It's a good challenge. It keeps you focused. So word count for me.
Yeah, because I did Joy 365 as
Mhm.
well, but I just did the self-care edition. And she turned me into a crisis writer. So I had to write self-care in a crisis.
Yep.
And she gave me 5 to 7 pages. I was like, I don't even know where to start. Like, she was like, look at, because I already wrote books about self-care. So I had to
Mhm.
look at the books I already wrote just to write self-care in a crisis. So I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, and when you're doing it, just don't. I mean, yeah, that the title is within itself, self care in a crisis. Just write,
Yeah.
just write. Don't because we went through, how we're supposed to write. What I have found as I'm researching more about writing is that there is no such a metaphor, a cliche, no right way to write. You just write, and then just come back and pull everything together. You don't have to, well, I got to focus on this topic because you may be writing something and then be like, oh, I thought about this. Okay, write it down. And then you can come back and revisit. So,
Okay.
yeah,
So do you self-publish or do you do the traditional publishing route?
the traditional publishing route. I think I should be self publishing, but I'm, I got to finish this career first. I have to make time for myself. Like I said, share my testimony. I realize that I have given a lot and I give a lot. So this is that time where it's understanding my priorities in life. Right now is I want to complete this mission in the army and then focus on now being a wife and mom. And if publishing comes, it'll come, but hmm, I just I let somebody else do the work.
You sound like me when I first started. Everybody's like, you should self-publish. I was like, I'm paying this lady this amount of money to publish my book. It's a lot easier to do it that way.
It
I mean,
is.
eventually I learned, but at first I was like, it was just so much easier just to do it.
It is, and then it just depends on who you're self publishing with. I mean, who you're publishing with.
Yeah.
Dr. V, she's been doing it a while. And she knows the ins and outs, and that is what she does on a daily basis. I'm still trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. So
Wait a minute, you already swapped it down. You in the military.
I'm trying to. This is what I tell people when I mentor them. What do you want to be when you grow up? Meaning, what do you want? So, if you get out the military, you retire. Like, what do you want to do after that? Some people are like, I'm going to go back into working. I'm going to get a government job. I'm going to teach. I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I don't know.
Well, you got till next year. I guess you better.
Right now, I'm not going to do anything. Enjoy. It's good to enjoy retirement. I'm going to enjoy retirement. Yes.
That's a long time. Was it so? You being a speech writer, you didn't have to go in combat or nothing like that. You was just like
Oh yes, I did.
you did combat too.
I've been to combat 3 times,
Wow.
and then I went to two. We wouldn't call them combat assignments, but they are peacekeeping assignments. So yes, I've seen a lot. I was there during the start of Operation Iraqi Freedom 2003, January 2003. Um, and was 7 months later, they were like, you're going back. I've been to Afghanistan. So yes, I've seen combat. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because I have a brother. Well, he's retired. He retired early. He
Mhm.
he's in his 40s, but I just texted him last week because it was his birthday. And I didn't realize I had uncles. Like we did like a family tree. I didn't realize it was uncles on my mother's side, and on my father's side, my brothers, and well, my dad was a Marine, so it was like
Wow.
I didn't know all of this stuff was like there.
It's
So
and it's different now because I just think it's different now. Patriotism, um, putting others before yourself. For me, it's different. The mindset is different, and I think that just comes with the change um, in our environment. The Gen Z. as we
Mhm.
call this generation right now.
Mhm.
It's just different. So yeah, combat is very much real. I never, being in school, I would not have thought that I would ever be in like my dad was in Desert Shield, Desert Storm.
Mhm.
I never thought that I would go to war, you know.
Mhm.
Um, and so to have gone and fought um, and lost people along the way, people that were very close to me during our time of fighting. Yeah,
So was that like last year? Because I was hearing of like rumors of war last year.
there's always wars and rumors of wars going on. No, for me, I actually my last overseas assignments was in South Korea, and it just so happened to be during the onset of the pandemic, and so the South Korean government pretty much shut off anyone coming in or going out of the country to keep the numbers down for from the spread of COVID. Um, so it was interesting to watch the news in South Korea and what you all were going through here in the United States. Um, Seeing, and talking to family members and friends where they were actually confined to their homes and we weren't.
Mhm.
We had our mask. We were being accounted for. If someone caught COVID or whatever, we found out you would know within 24 hours, like how it was spread, who was there, who needs to be quarantined. It was very like structured. Definitely different here. Seeing like, I don't know how I would have managed being in my home for
It,
months.
yeah, it was
For
chaotic
months.
here because
Yes.
like they shut everything down.
Mhm.
And I actually my main job, I actually make clothes for the military, so they
Oh,
made us go to work still. Yes, I make the clothes for the military, so they made us go to work.
really? That's really interesting. Oh, wow. Yeah. So yeah, you were still working. So yeah, we were still working. Minimally manned. There was not a lot of work from home for us in South Korea. Uh,
Mhm.
Now the schools, our schools did. Our
Mhm.
schools went into pretty much that shutdown mode, and so the kids were like on screen like twice a week. That was tough because I was like, I did not go to school to be a teacher.
You had to be a teacher too?
No, I mean, because the kids are on the camera for 1 hour twice a
Mhm.
week, but the teachers are still giving them all this work, and you gotta make sure your kids do the home. I was like, this is a lot. I need y'all to come back to school. It was in Korea, education is different. My children learn how like their math. They do their math in their head. And so, coming back to the United States and you're showing your work, my kids was like, yeah, I can't tell you how I got the answer. I just know how to get the answer. Because they were just programmed it. They learn different. So, but it
Okay.
wasn't bad though. Yes, it was. Yeah, that was probably the worst part of COVID for me.
Okay. So what if you talk to somebody who wanted to be a writer and it was their first time being an author, what advice would you give
Right from your heart. Right from your heart. Even if someone gives you a title or a focus, whatever you're writing, make sure you write it from your heart. Make sure it's coming from you. And you can do your research. You can, Google, Yahoo search, whatever, to find things that will give you some inspiration. You know, but write from your heart. I found that is always the best. Just like with Joy 365, when you wrote that piece, you were probably like, "Oh man, this was great." For me, it was
them?
like I was able to share what I go through on a daily basis, what trust really meant to me, what the mustard seed faith really meant to me. Um, and I let my daughter write as well. She's 13, so she's published author. So I let her do it, and interesting enough, she did the same scripture. Her topic was from the same
Ah,
section. I did not know. I didn't, I said, just do a devotional like mommy get up and read her devotionals and everything. And so same scripture. So it was sweet. That was sweet to see that.
that was nice.
Yeah.
So when do you realize you wanted to be a writer?
October 2021, when I shared my first story with the book Pivot.
Okay.
Um, that's when I knew. I said, this is something I want to do, but I didn't want to do this like full time. I don't want to be a full time writer. I want to be if I could be a crisis management writer, I would.
Okay.
I just want to do it and, go back to my regular life. Like I said, I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. So
You got till what? You said February?
28 February 2025.
Well, you got some time.
I got a little bit of time. I got a little bit of time.
So what are I think you already mentioned some of your favorite books to read.
So my niece just joined the army, so she's in basic training right now. So I'm really, really excited for her. And she was reading the book by Mary Monroe, and I was like, oh, I used to read her back in the day. And so I started back reading some books by Mary Monroe with her, so we can read together. I read. I love autobiographies. I do not know why, but I love to read about other people's stories.
Mhm.
I like some military books, not all. It just really has to depend. Anything that deals with World War One is probably my favorite genre to read about, and I like self-help, self-healing books.
Okay. Okay. Um, how important are book reviews to you?
So I would say it's 50-50 because it's good to get the feedback. And you're praying that someone gives you the information to kind of help you see yourself. But then there are times I'm good on giving reviews and feedbacks myself.
Mhm.
And sometimes I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing a review. I'm just like, I don't want to say, hey, it was a good book, 5 stars. Go from there.
Mhm.
So it really depends. If that's how you are um, grading yourself off of a review, sometimes you may be disappointed, in my opinion.
What is your favorite part of being a writer?
Transparency, being transparent. Yeah.
Okay. What makes a great story?
Lasting impact.
Never thought about that. Okay.
Lasting impact. If you read a good story, you remember a great story. When you read something, you're like, oh, I read this, and you remember that. If you're just reading because you gotta, for work, you're just like, oh, okay, I just gotta get through it to read it, but you don't remember it the next day. It probably wasn't that good.
Oh wow. Okay. What's the most surprising thing you learned while writing your books?
That I actually can write. I mean, I've been in the military a long time, so for me, it's we write very straightforward, very candid, a lot of acronyms.
Mhm.
But I learned that I can actually write without talking about the army. Yeah,
Okay. Oh, I forgot to ask, where can we find your books at?
Amazon, my webpage, gemleadershipfoundation.com, gemleadershipfoundation.com. But Amazon, you can find all of them there.
You say GEM Leadership Foundation.
Foundation.com.
Okay. And have you ever had writer's block? How did you handle it? I think that's my last question for right now.
For writer's block, I when I have writer's block, I probably will go and sit down and do everything else. Eat some ice cream. Ice cream is like my go-to. So I have writer's block a lot because I go to ice cream a lot. um, I get off topic. I'll sit there and do like start doing the little games, solitary or doing a puzzle or something, just to and not think about what I need to write. That's my way of coming out of writer's block. Because if I'm sitting there and I'm thinking about it, I got writer's block. It's still not going to come to you
Yeah, that's true.
from me. So yeah, so that's what I do.
Okay. And I think we are done. I thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you, and thank you for the adjusting with the time. I forget sometimes Eastern, Central, Pacific.
Yeah, trust me, I've been everywhere now. I've been trying to adjust myself. So thank you for coming on and adjusting to the time zone difference.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed this. Thank you.
Okay, but this is the artist in you, and I will see you next week.